Hello. So I'm going to go through Foresight AI here, probably over about the next 20 minutes or so. This is a bit of a 101 on Foresight, some of the terms that are used, some of the logic that's used, to give you a bit of a guide of whether it might be for you, give you examples of a few of the concepts in the system. Most likely, a good next step in the system will then be to start a trial of the platform if it interests you. Speak to us and we can help talk you through examples within the system. There's a lot of context in things. Everyone's products are slightly different, so it's always best to look with like your information with a few caveats, which I'll mention in a little bit. But this is kind of designed as a bit of a 101 intro type guide like we have across various areas of the system. First couple of things to note. So Foresight AI started life as Inventoro. That's what the platform was called, and it was an external platform that you could connect to Cin7 amongst a number of other tools for forecasting. Eventually, there was a merger done, so it's now Foresight is now a part of Cin7, but there are also some setup and setting areas that live outside of Cin7 that are not quite fully integrated yet. That may change over time, and we'll endeavour to update this video as and when that changes. But that's why I'll jump between a few different things. So what does it do? At its core, it's optimizing inventory levels to meet forecasting. Now, there are various levels of forecasting within the system. So at a base level, or not forecasting, but managing stock. At a base level within Cin7, you can go into inventory and then products and put a reorder level in the system. So you can just say, when we fall below 10 units in this warehouse, order some more product. And you can do that different per product, different per warehouse. That's the base level. It's just a flat line. You fall below this line, you reorder more product. I guess there is probably one level even further behind that, which is when you go out of stock, you reorder a product. But that's obviously a little bit delayed. Probably the next level above that is to look at either the velocity reporting in the system and or the MRP module. Got a separate 101 video on that. Ask us if you need access to that one. What that will then look at is sales volumes and also sales, purchasing, production, and assemblies in the system. So that will look and say, you've got sales of 100 units. Historically, you sell 20 units a week. You want 2 weeks worth of stock. You need the 100 for the sales you got in the system, and another 20 and another 20 for the 2 weeks difference. So it's more dynamic than a flat reorder level, but it's not completely dynamic, as in it's not, I guess, AI driven and also algorithm driven. So it's not taking into account what else it can see from the trends, the history, and so on. Then the highest level above is Foresight. So Foresight's using, there's about 100 different algorithms that are in the system. And it will, over time, use all of those algorithms to find a kind of happy medium between everything. Because depending on whether you are more project-based, more B2B, more B2C, whether you've got expiry lives of products, whether you've got set order days from customers, whether you've got seasonality, any and all of these things, everyone's forecast is slightly different. And that's one of the reasons for needing a decent bit of history as well in the system, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So, to all of that end, you can find Foresight. So if you have Foresight activated, you'll likely see dashboard options just here. If you don't see those, you may just need to tick them on in the Manage Dashboard option. If you don't see them or you can't add them in the Manage Dashboard option, you don't have Foresight, most likely. You can go to Integration. There is a Foresight AI option. And if you don't have it enabled, you can enable it. And I believe there is a trial. We don't have it on our demo because it's already in there, but I believe there is a trial. And once you have it set up, you've got this forecast and settings option here. So if we jump over to forecast and settings, you'll see in the URL it's still called Inventoro, but Foresight AI, Inventoro, same. And we now just look at the forecast in the system. Now, a couple of things to note before we begin here. Foresight AI needs at least 90 days of reasonable data to allow the system to compute predictions and similar. Ideally 6 months, but 90 days as a minimum. So we generally recommend people look at Foresight and also the MRP, to be honest, after about 3 to 6 months of using the system. Because even if we were to look to bring sales history in from another platform, it's usually handled very differently because you may have sales order dates, sales fulfillment dates, you may get products returned unless we have every single bit of that information, plus your purchase orders, purchase order receipts, receipt days, lead times, things like that. The data is kind of meaningless. I'll get to that, those metrics in a moment. So across here, we simply just have a quantity-based forecast. So this is just giving you a very, very, very simple overview and just noting that there's a very, very small one there because we're only 2 days into November. That's why it looks a bit funky there. Because it's forecasting out to next month. So this is just showing you total units of products in the system. Not massively useful to do any analysis with, but just as a kind of overview dashboard. The things to probably look at when you first go into the system. So on the side here, if you go into product segmentation, you've got options for how you tell the system to focus the strategy, and this will affect the algorithms that are used. So very simply, and this might be obvious, but forgive me. So profit will focus on the most profitable products, that is by percentage. Revenue will focus on those products that generate the most revenue, but maybe not necessarily the highest profit margin. Sales frequency will focus on the products that are most popular, as in they are in the highest number of transactions. And sales quantity will focus on those that have the highest total sales volume by quantity, not by dollar. So there's right and wrong answers for all of this. If you sell 20,000 little nuts and bolts that are worth 10 cents each, if you track on sales quantity, the system is going to focus 90% of its time on looking at those nuts and bolts and getting that perfect. If that doesn't really matter to you, because you can go and buy those nuts and bolts 2 factories down with 10 minutes notice, don't focus on that. Equivalently, if you look at the profit level, if you've got some subset of products that are much higher profit than others, it will focus on those, assuming they are selling, of course, and that comes to winners, losers, and chasers, and we'll get to that in a moment. As a first review, I would probably encourage you to set it to sales frequency, because that's a good way of understanding the customer demand first. So generally what people want to see is, oh, loads of people are ordering blue widgets. I will need to get more blue widgets in because I don't have enough in stock. And if you set it to profit or revenue, you could find that the system does not massively prioritize blue widgets because you're selling loads of them, but they're not actually making you that much money. I would generally recommend putting on profit later on once you're familiar with the system, because just because you sell a whole load of products, if they're not making you any money, maybe you don't need to be selling those. Again, that's a user by user thing, because there are plenty of cases where you need to sell some of the lower value, lower profit products as a loss leader into the market, or as an accessory to products you sell or similar. So no right and no wrong answer here, just note what all these options are. As well, a couple of other things to be aware of. Within Foresight itself, you also need to go into suppliers and ideally ensure there is a minimum order level if one applies. And sometimes this might be arbitrary. So it might be that the supplier doesn't say that you have a minimum order quantity, but you do yourself, as in you don't want to send an order out for $5, for example. So here you could say, for example, I want to order at least $1,000, and you could obviously copy that down across all suppliers. That will basically just avoid POs being recommended or POs being generated with, 2 nuts and bolts on them, and it's going to cost you more to get it delivered. There are also a couple of other settings here for purchase order period and lead time. So purchase order period is we order every week, every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, or so on. Lead times is how long does it take to get the product in from when you raise your PO. Now, by default, everything is just using your data. So it will look at how often you actually order from that supplier, and it will look at how quickly that supplier actually delivers. Now, fairly obviously, that relies on the age-old adage of garbage in, garbage out. And this is another reason for saying that you've got to be careful if you're bringing history into the system, because if you just bring flat files of purchase orders, you don't have that lead time logic of the date you ordered, the date you received, for example. So that said, once using the system for, as in Cin7, for kind of 60 to 90 days, up to 6 months, it's worth setting this based on your data, because we oftentimes find that people will say, well, that supplier's lead time is, say they're a domestic supplier, they can get stuff here within 2 days, but the data often tells us that they can't, and they're closer to 3, 4, 5 days, and that can make a significant difference in forecasting. So that's there if you want. A couple of other options. There are imports and bulk updates as well. So if you've got hundreds of suppliers, you can update them in bulk, but just make sure that you've got that key information. Finally and additionally, and this is back into Cin7 itself, make sure that every product in the system then has a supplier assigned. So if you go into a particular product, head to suppliers here. This product has a whole load of suppliers, but make sure there is at least one supplier nominated against the product. Otherwise, there will not be a recommendation available. So all of that said, there's then a couple of things to be aware of. So winners and losers in the system. Let's talk about winners versus losers versus chaser. So a winner is products that are selling very well. You always want to hold these in stock. And the system aims for a 99.5% service level. So important consideration here, the system will never aim for 100% service level purely because it's basically impossible. The system can't predict every single little thing that will happen in real life. And also that can dangerously lead to overstocking, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So 99.5% service level for those products where you are constantly turning them through, constantly selling them, and similar. It shows you your top couple of them here, noting there are 11. If you click on show all, it will show all of them. And you can use these little graphs to dive into more information as well. Chasers are then products that are attracting customers, but they are not your top sellers. So they're moving, maybe they're ancillary products. So maybe every time people are buying kettlebells, they will occasionally buy a weights accessory or a gym mat or something along those lines. They're not your primary products, but they are selling, they are running through, they're important for your range. And Foresight aims for around a 95% service level for these. And again, in this case, you can go show all and you can see more information. Finally, there are losers. So losers is product where it's not selling very low, selling at a very low margin, or similar. So losers, the system will essentially never try to reorder. And you can see here, and remember this fact for a moment, so at the moment, they're 21% of products and 18% of our inventory. So the system will be trying to not reorder these. Obviously, it's up to you how you sell those down, whether you do a discount or try and get a buyback from the supplier or similar. But that's the important things to note there. So just to show you as well, if I click on this little graph, just to show you the little graph, it will then show you that particular product here as well, so you can see that information as well. So that is all good so far. That's all the key information that you need to know about within here. Oh, so sorry, another really important thing. If you have multiple warehouses, just note that the winner, the chaser, and the loser logic is built per warehouse, and you can nominate warehouses from here. So in this example, like a product which is, say, a loser or a chaser in like Brisbane or Melbourne might be a winner in Los Angeles because of different geographies and markets and similar. So that's also why warehouse shows here. And just to save some confusion, you may get different categorizations based on the warehouse that they're in. So that's win and losers. There is a replenishment option here where you can generate purchase orders, and there are purchase order proposals here for what you should be doing with certain types of products. Come back to that in a moment because it's generally better to do that on the Cin7 side of things. And there are a couple of reports here as well, but again, we'll go back to that on the Cin7 side of things as well. Another really important point with the reports, with the forecast, with the analysis, Foresight is generally recalculating its forecasts every 12 to 24 hours. So if you do something like huge bulk updates into Cin7, massive purchase receipts, stock take adjustments, things like that, give the system a day to readjust all the algorithms as well. So if we jump back here, I'll start to show you. So where I had reports up here, first of all, in Foresight itself, within Cin7, if I go to reports and go Foresight AI, I've got the same kind of reports here as well. So I can quickly and easily see like which products are winners and losers, for example. I can see my forecast, I can see my stock outs, any of these here, same as you would have on the other side. And again, it's by location as well. You can also pull these out to Excel if you want to pull them out. Probably the most important area, which mirrors this replenishment page here, is if you go to purchase and then Smart Reorder. So what the system's going to do here is it's going to make intelligent suggestions what to order based on winners, losers, chasers, the forecast, the stock expectation, so how long the stock will take to arrive based on either the supplier settings or your system history. So as a reminder, you can set that up yourself just in here if you wish to, or at the moment it's using our data. So what this is going to look at is, as at today, what do we need to reorder from every supplier to every location? So at the moment, we need to reorder 3,400 worth of POs. They're all winners. And in this case, they are all the vitamin C powder. So the only thing we need to reorder is vitamin C powder into Brisbane warehouse, which is a winner. And we need to reorder 170 units of that. Now, if you wanted to, you can look at older sales history period here. Plus, you can also change the period here that you're looking at as well. So you can tell the system, for example, to look at, say, this month as an example. And that then may affect the suggestions that are made. So you'll see here, there are more reorders being done, and you can see some of these go as far out. So for example, with the vitamin C powder, and remembering that we said we order every 7 days, the system is saying we'll need to order today. We don't then need to order for a couple of weeks, but then on the 21st, we'll need another order. And on the 28th, we need another order much higher up, most likely because of either Black Friday predictions or Christmas predictions or similar kind of seasonality. Otherwise, these chasers, we also need to order in, but again, lesser numbers. And they're not showing until tomorrow, obviously down to when our usual purchasing cycle is. Obviously, if we wanted to, we can leave these product sticks and we can reorder them today. There's nothing forcing us to do it. It's just saying you don't need to order it until tomorrow based on your lead times and similar. The merge suggestions option, just so you're aware, so where there's 3 options here for the vitamin powder, and actually, sorry, I'll just make this a little bit bigger because it's probably more as well. Yeah, there are others. Then you'll see here where there's 3 vitamin C powder. If you go to merge suggestions, then that will just tell you to order it once on the first date. So if, for example, you know that the supplier is shutting down for Christmas or similar, you can tell it to reorder and merge the suggestions. A couple of other things to look at. Watch out for this exclamation mark, which either tells you that it is in a stock out or it's at risk of stock out based on your ordering. So you can see there's none available of these 2 products and they are winners. So these 2 should be ordered instantly. Otherwise, obviously, there's filters here, so you can just look at certain suppliers or certain information. If you were to look here, for example, so if I untick everything, and side note, you can open this up to see some of the information here as to what it's looking at and where it's getting this information from. So if I was to, for example, just say that I want to just deal with these 3, so these 3 winners here, including a couple of stock out ones, hit reorder. System will then drop them here to the bottom, so you can see the products that have been ordered here, they disappear off the top list. This PO is also created, and I can choose this from this side panel here. And then I can also continue to do more of this if I wanted to. Click reorder again. You can always export this if you want to do further analysis or further review or similar on it as well. So there is a myriad more information in the system. And again, because there's like 100 algorithms competing behind the scenes to things, we often get questions from clients of like, why is this being suggested? How is this being suggested? Why is this not suggesting to order as many? The main thing to note is the system looks up to 6 months. Even though I've said, what do I need to order this month? It will look 6 to 12 months in the future to analyze the trends so that you don't end up overstocked. So if you're selling a whole load of Christmas decorations at the moment in November, then the system will look and go, you need loads more, but I need to make sure you have, let's say it's a chaser product, a 95% service level, whilst being aware you're likely to sell very little in January, maybe some on sale, and then basically none February, March, April, May, and so on. So you may end up stocked out, but as long as you are stocked out for less than 5%, that is optimal for the system. So hopefully that all makes sense as a good kind of 101 around the system. By all means, if you don't have Foresight on your system, start a trial, but then feel free to ask us about information, why suggestions are running certain ways. Like I said, the single biggest thing to be aware of is garbage in, garbage out. But there's plenty more we can go through with real examples and so on and so forth. But hopefully a useful overview for everything you need to know.